So I just finished watching X-Men Days of Future Past and I got some things I want to say about it.
Spoiler alert!
Also,
profanity alert!
I like to swear a lot. So I'm gonna start off by saying that even though I'm gonna mention some complaints about this movie, I still really like it and I highly recommend it to anybody else. For the other two rant movies I did, this movie is definitely a lot better than Iron Man 3 and Superman Man of Suckiness. That movie sucked. I'm also approaching this review from the perspective of an avid comic book reader. I've read the Days of Future Past comic line and I loved it. And I've also read thousands of other Marvel comics, only Marvel. I'm not a fan of DC. Anyhow, the movie for Days of Future Past was actually really rewarding for me as a comic book reader because the movie gets a lot of source material from the original comic line. Even though there are a few major changes, it doesn't ruin the movie as a result. So if you're a comic book reader or not, you should definitely enjoy this movie. I also think that the movie did a really great job of showing a lot of other Marvel characters. Blink was pretty fantastic, even though I think they could have used her a little bit more effectively. In fact, I think that if they followed the comic books more, she probably could have dismantled every single one of those Sentinels on her own. Hi there, Sentinel-1. My name is Blink. I just took Sentinel-2's arm and I teleported it right up your butthole. She could do that. I also kind of think Colossus rather colossally sucked. He kept on getting beat up far too much. Big, strong Russian man really sucky in this movie. But seeing Bishop there was rather satisfying as well. They even had the whole M's carved into their eyes like you see in the comic books too. I found it really nerdy and rewarding. Even more satisfying though was watching Storm die because Halle Berry rather sucks as Storm. Sorry, not sorry. They also gave a couple other nods to comic book readers. For example, Quicksilver says that his mom knew somebody who could bend metal, which if you haven't read the comics, you don't actually know that Magneto is really Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch's father. It's not necessary for the movie, but it's interesting if you read the comics because you're like, holy shit, I know what they're talking about. Also very badass is how they showed Apocalypse after the credits. For those of you who don't know what those end credits were about, that mutant right there, his name is Apocalypse, and he's supposed to be the focus of the next X-Men movie. And if you don't know any more about Apocalypse, he's pretty much a crazy ass mutant. While Magneto wants a mutant race to be acknowledged as superior, Apocalypse takes this one step further and he wants to murder every single non-mutant out there. Step up your game, Magneto. You're here. Apocalypse is here. But also really cool about Apocalypse, when they pan to the left, you saw those people on the horses. Those might be Apocalypse's 4 horsemen. I bet you didn't pick that one up. So I really liked the movie. It wasn't perfect though. There were a couple complaints that I have, but not enough to make me not recommend the movie to other people. For starters, I think we all could agree that Quicksilver was the best thing that happened in that movie. He is by far the strongest mutant in that movie, and he could clearly kick everyone's asses as seen in the breakout scene with Magneto. Seriously, what were Charles and Wolverine even there for? Beast, or should I call him Batiste, he had a purpose because he was jamming signals and turning on sprinklers. But what were Charles and Wolverine doing there? I am your escort to the elevator door, which you clearly don't need me to bring you towards. Seriously, Charles and Wolverine could have just stayed in Quicksilver's house and played Pong all day and ate all them cookies that he stole. Quicksilver, the Cookie Monster. Seems like a cool rap name. Better copyright that. And then another thing I didn't really understand was that once Quicksilver saved everybody's asses, he's like, all right, peace out, homies, I'm going home. Why wasn't he included in the rest of the movie? He could have definitely saved the plot from taking those stupid twists at the end, and he could have made this so much smoother. Quicksilver was definitely the best part of the movie and extremely underused. They should have just made an entire movie based on him. Quicksilver, Days of Future Past. Overall, my biggest complaint with this movie is that it wasn't really that satisfying as a superhero movie. I kind of had the same complaint with Iron Man 3, in which it spent more time with personal development and internal conflicts rather than actually being a kick-ass superhero movie. I want to see more action, not so much grief counseling. Charles spent far too much time complaining about how he literally can't even. And Wolverine, who's supposed to be the best at what he does, barely does any of that. He spends most of his time being a counselor for Charles. Tell me how you really feel, Charles. Friendship, future, hope. Wolverine was definitely a waste of character in this movie. Side note, are they gonna make a Metal Gear Solid movie? And if they are, I definitely think that Hugh Jackman should be casted it. He's perfect for that role. Also, I failed to understand how Magneto has become the biggest douche nozzle in the Marvel universe. He takes over the Sentinels by putting railroad tracks into them. Okay, I understand that. I don't understand how those railroad tracks made him a computer programmer all of a sudden so that he could override the system. I thought that he would just like bend them or warp them, but not be able to shoot their guns, but whatever. Small complaint. I don't understand why he needed to lift up the stadium to create such a huge spectacle at the end. He had control of the Sentinels. If he wanted to end the Sentinel program, he could have just stayed in the back, and as soon as they turned on the Sentinels, he could have had them shoot the president or shoot Bolivar Trask. He could have showed how the program is an epic failure. Instead, by bringing the whole stadium over, he shows that there is a need for the Sentinel program. Being quiet and maintaining your anonymity is definitely your friend in this situation. Instead, he tried to flex his muscles and show that mutants aren't to be messed with. But in the process, he's totally justified the use of Sentinels. He has shown now that mutants are scary as shit. And sure, it's easier for Magneto because he's a master of magnetism and he's really strong and powerful and he can defend himself. But what about the tiny mutants that don't have the epic powers that you have? What about boy with chicken face who's gonna be targeted now as a result? Or what about the mutant with epic farting powers? They cannot defend themselves the way you can. And by doing what you have just done, you have made them all victims to your egotism. It was stupid. It almost felt to me like the directors were like, shit, we got 20 minutes left in the movie and $20 million left since we clearly haven't done that much with it. Let's have him lift up a stadium. Fortunately, Magneto was stopped and then Mystique is in control, but it's already too late by then. The government already sees how scary you are. Magneto on a grand scale, and now this blue girl who's like quivering and shaking and pointing a gun to you on a smaller scale. Either way, they know that mutants are really scary and they need to be dealt with. It's totally a lost cause. If I was Mystique, I would have just shot him and said, a Lannister always pays his debts, and then drop the gun and walk away like a badass. Should have done that, Mystique. Overall, those are my two complaints. Magneto was stupid and Quicksilver was underused, but those are definitely not big enough complaints for me to not recommend this movie. So let me know what you think in the comments or if there's anything I missed out on. I'm gonna talk more about this in the blog post. Make sure you click on the link here so we can carry on the conversation like friends with hope for the future and humanity. Friendship.